Welcome to the School of Computing at University Utara, Malaysia. Today, under the direction of Dr. Jabbar Al-Maliki, we are tackling Lecture 8, Regulatory Compliance, Law, and Ethics in Cybersecurity. It is a common misconception that cybersecurity begins and ends with technical tools, that the discipline is composed entirely of firewalls, encryption, and code. Technical defenses operate in a vacuum without a legal and ethical framework. A firewall can block unauthorized packets, but it cannot account for regulatory exposure or the human choices that bypass security protocols. Organizations that neglect these non-technical variables face tangible consequences. This includes severe legal penalties, the loss of user trust, and long-term damage to professional reputation. A viable cybersecurity architecture integrates government law, moral ethics, and structured compliance directly into its technical design. To understand how these elements overlap, we must first define them as distinct variables. We begin with law, external, mandatory government rules dictating required organizational actions. Next, ethics, internal moral principles dictating what is inherently right or wrong. Finally, compliance serves as the functional bridge, the documented operational adherence to both legal mandates and ethical standards. Consider a practical example. Your organization maintains a large database of personal user information. Your team must deploy specific legal protections to shield that data from theft. You must ethically act responsibly by ensuring the data is not misused. And you must operationally prove, through audits, that you are following those specific regulations. Compliance provides the daily engineering record that connects external legal demands to internal moral duties. The legal mandates you must follow are not universal. Laws change drastically depending on the physical jurisdiction of servers and user locations. You must understand your local regulatory environment. Operating within Malaysia binds you to sovereign domestic mandates governing digital transactions and data residency. The Internet's borderless nature means local knowledge is insufficient. If a single European citizen uses your platform, you must comply with international frameworks like the GDPR. This matrix organizes common regulations into 4 categories. First, data protection safeguards personal information. Beside it, cybercrime defines illegal actions like hacking and fraud. Third, intellectual property protects the digital content, algorithms, and software architecture engineers spend careers building. The final category is national security. This mandates the defense of critical infrastructure, power grids, financial centers, and transit networks from systemic cyber warfare. Navigating this legal landscape is what defines the boundaries of what a security engineer is allowed to build and deploy. How does an enterprise actually ensure it meets these massive legal obligations every single day? Organizations rely on a 5-step operational cycle. 1. Policy development sets internal rules. 2. Risk assessment identifies vulnerabilities. 3. Implementation of controls applies technical measures like encryption. 4. Training prevents human error. 5. Continuous monitoring verifies the entire system functions correctly. Compliance is a continuous cycle. It sustains the entire security posture of the organization from the inside out. But adhering to this cycle introduces a crucial paradox. Being legally compliant does not automatically mean an action is ethically correct. Laws define the minimum standard required by the state. Ethics demand choosing actions that are morally right, even when the law is entirely silent. As a cybersecurity professional, your core ethical principles include respecting user privacy, maintaining data confidentiality, and actively preventing the misuse of information. This creates intense professional dilemmas. For example, an organization might have the legal right to monitor every keystroke an employee makes on a company laptop, but is it ethical to record that data without explicit knowledge? Or consider an active threat. If your server is being hit by a denial of service attack, is it acceptable to hack back and destroy the attacker's infrastructure, knowing you might cause collateral damage to innocent third-party networks? You will constantly face scenarios where you must balance technical security needs against human rights and legal limits. When the delicate balance between legal limits, ethical choices, and technical controls completely collapses, the results are highly visible. Look at the Facebook Cambridge Analytica scandal. The technical systems functioned as programmed, but data was harvested without proper consent, an ethical failure that destroyed public trust. Consider GDPR violations. Major technology firms have faced hundreds of millions of dollars in fines from European regulators simply because their internal data protection protocols failed to meet legal standards. And in cases of insider data misuse, where employees abuse their access to confidential files, we see that technical perimeters are useless if the company fails to enforce strict behavioral policies. These incidents demonstrate that systemic failures often originate outside the server room. They represent breakdowns in legal oversight, ethical judgment, or compliance enforcement. Building a secure system requires a unified approach. You must integrate legal mandates, ethical decision-making, and robust, verifiable regulatory compliance. As you move through the school of computing and enter the industry, you are the ones who will be tasked with balancing system security against human privacy. Take a moment to consider these questions. How will you identify the difference between law and ethics in your own work? And how will you handle a directive that is technically legal but ethically wrong? The ultimate test of a cybersecurity professional rests on exactly that balance. It is about what you can build,